Very good morning to everybody and welcome to another session of Agile testing and automation, our 11th session. We've come a long way. And today, last week, on a previous session, we looked at testing quadrants, and we also did an introduction to test automation. Testing quadrants, if you remember very well, we said quadrants are a taxonomy to help teams plan their testing and make sure they've got all the resources that are needed to accomplish the test. And we looked at an example which showed a grouping of different types of tests. We saw the business-facing test, technology-facing, and the ones that critique the product and the ones that help or support the team. Today, we will be looking at when to automate tests, limitations to automation testing, and then myths and realities of testing automation. Yeah, I was going to bring the approaches in, I said last week, but I had to make it easier for me to. It will be easier for me to do this and then handle the approach and a few other things that are linked to the approach separately. So we'll look at that next week. So when to automate a test. I remember somebody asked this question last week. When is it a good time to consider automation testing? So first of all, you decide whether to automate any of your tests or not in refinement sessions or at worst in iteration planning. That's always a good time because that is when you break down the story into tasks, etc., and you get a clearer view of the iteration goals and then estimate on the basis of that before committing to it. So that's always a good time before the sprint begins. Okay, but what are the drivers to deciding when and what to automate your test? What are the things that drive it? The first one I've got here is high risk tests. So these are high priority, and when you've got high priority and business critical functions, which if they fail, greatly affect the business module, this should straight away, trigger automation test, or this should make you consider automating test cases that fall in this category. And then cases which can block the release of the software entirely. So you want to automate stuff like this as well. Another one is when you've got complex or time-consuming test cases. So the complexity and the time consumption alone speaks for itself. If you've got tests that are complex and you've got a lot of work to do in the future, you want to make sure, or you want to consider automating such tests. And then when you've got increasing number of tests, okay, when you've got an increasing number of tests like regression, that is what unit testing, for instance, that is mainly for testing, for regression. Remember that unless if it's a new feature, as more features and new ones come in and bug fixes and stuff like that are deployed into the test environment or into the environment where you're doing your testing, it becomes hectic. So it's a good time to consider, or good reason to consider automating your tests. And then we've also got static, static and repetitive tests. There's certain tests that, they're just repetitive. simple things like setting up the environment. You want to automate tests and tasks that are repetitive and relatively unchanging. Let's just say you've got a website which require logging in as different users to do different things. Instead of always having to log in and do that, you want to automate this kind of process. So that's a good time. And then tasks like setting the environment, data, and stuff like that. You want to automate such repetitive activity. So once you go in, all this is automated, and then you can just do your manual testing or just add more automated tests to it. Data-driven tests, where some functions need validating with loads of different data inputs or large data sets. So let's just say you've got a scenario, a test, which let's just say a single test scenario, a test case, which require you using different sets of data. That's a good time to automate, or that is a good reason why you would want to automate. Then we've got load and performance testing. So with load and performance testing, let's just say you want to test about 5,000 or let's say 3,000 concurrent users, in a certain period of time. I don't know how you're gonna manually test something like that. So there's no viable manual alternative to tests like load and performance testing. So that is a good time for you to consider, or a good reason to consider automating your test. And then we've got smoke testing, which is also known as the build verification test, which is non-exhaustive set of tests that aim at ensuring that the most important functions work. So it helps decide if a build deployed into the test environment or the environment that you're doing your test, it helps to decide whether the build is stable enough for you to proceed with your testing. So again, this is a good candidate for automation. And when you've got things like these or situations like this, scenarios like this, you do want to consider automating them. Okay, I'll move on next to, how are we doing for time? I'll move on to some myths of automation testing. Some myths, some of the things that we hear about automation testing. One is to look at some of them. The first one that I've got here is that you can automate everything. Sometimes people think that you can automate everything, but it's not every test that can be automated. So for instance, user experience, UX designs and stuff like that. And most of the user acceptance testing, you can't automate stuff like that. So you cannot automate everything. It's not true that you can't. Another one is automated testing always results in better or improved software quality. That is not true. Someone said to make a statement like this, it's just like standing on a scale to lose weight. Testing is a measure of quality, and the number of defects that you find, they indicate the quality of the software. Okay, so it does not always result in better or improved quality. Every testing team can use automated testing. That is not true. Not every testing team can use automated testing. For starters, you need the technical skills to be able to write automated testing. Not apart from that. All right, I'll just say that I didn't want to bring this yet, but I'll just say that apart from that, not every piece of work will require automation testing. Okay, let's just say you're working on a static site, for instance. You may not need to automate stuff like that. So if anyone says every testing team can use automated testing tools, it's not true, mainly because you need the expertise, you need the technical skills to do it. So if the team doesn't have it, you can't automate. Automation testing brings a rapid return on investment. Again, that is not true. It does not bring the rapid is not true, because initially a lot of the setting up of the automated tests, the initial setup takes time, is very involving, and can be costly as well. So automation testing does not bring rapid return on investment. Initially, it takes time, so that's not true. Automation testing is better than manual. This again is not true. It's a myth. It is not better than manual testing. First of all, automation testing comes to make the life of a manual tester easier. It just saves us time and a few other benefits that come with it, but it is not better. And you can't, I always say this, that you can't get rid of your automation, a manual tester. You can't not, even if you've got millions of whatever good unit test coverage, you still want to manually do some testing, depending on what you're testing anyway, depending on the nature of the software under test. And then automated testing is an all or nothing proposition. Again, that's not true. You can't, again, you can't automate everything. And just because you can't automate everything just because you can't, doesn't mean you can't automate what's necessary. If you can't automate everything, at least you can automate the things that are necessary. It's not all or nothing proposition. Automate what you can, and then what you can't, you do not automate. And if you don't need to automate anything at all, there's no need to automate. So it's not an all or nothing. Yeah. You just do what you can. Right. Realities of automation testing. I think we've covered most of these in what I just said. This is mainly from Oracle, but I just want to agree with it, that automated testing requires, time again, beg pardon. Automated testing requires a higher initial investment. I think I said this earlier on, but can yield a higher return on investment. So I think I raised this earlier on, that it requires a higher initial investment, the time, the effort in writing the tests, setting up, and all that. That is Second point is that skills and training are required to be successful with any automated testing tool. That is true with any tool that you use. You need the skills and the training. So let's just say you've got the team, they have to be trained, and they will need the skills that are needed to use any tool that are introduced. So let's just say I can use, because of experience, I can use a few of the tools, but then if anyone brings any automation tool that I've not used, I'll just have to learn how to use it initially, and that'll take me a bit of time. So why are we bringing these points, or why are we raising this here? It's good for the team to know when you've got an automation tester, or you've got test analysts on your team and they estimate a lot of time for their work. Or let's just say you've got manual test analysts and they are training that you need to train. You've got manual test analysts and you want to start automation, they need to be trained. Okay, so skills are, testers do get bullied sometimes because of requirements from the project. So this is important that we take this away. You have to train your team. Every company doing automated testing still does some amount of manual testing. I said that earlier. You can't do without manual. It's just not safe and it's not clever. So I mean, these 3 points, I got them from Oracle, and I completely agree with them. Almost every company doing automated testing still does some amount of manual testing. So that's it for the myths. And let's look at limitations. Limitations to test automation. Right, it's important to highlight these limitations for consideration when deciding to adopt automation testing on any Agile project, just so that we don't put all our hopes on automation testing and think it is everything. The first point I want to raise it. Oh, I've got this picture here of this. I haven't got my pointer here, but this thing on the man's leg or woman's leg, looks like a man anyway, kind of like limits their movement, so they can move at the pace that they want to. That's why I brought that. The first point I want to raise here is that test automation requires development and maintenance efforts. So more effort is required in developing, as in programming or writing the test, and then maintaining the test. We mentioned earlier on that initial setup initial setup requires a lot of time, but there's more effort. I mentioned here, it's a limitation. More effort is required in developing and maintaining the test. So it's not just developing, but then I had to highlight the maintaining as well. Again, we're bringing this up because just so that if you're considering automation testing and you're thinking we're in a hurry, we need to finish this project in a short space of time, you need to consider that these tests have to be maintained. Why? Because there's a lot of code coming in. As developers churning new features, sometimes the person writing the automation test may have to refactor some of the existing tests to accommodate the new functionalities that are coming in. So yeah, as a result of that, this previous one, it impacts on the length and duration of the development. Of course, if time is being spent maintaining some of the tests, then it could, how it will definitely have an impact on the length and duration of the development. Some tests, like load and performance tests, may require more time for execution, because of weight or whatever. Yeah, weight or pressure on the, pressure's not the right word, but for want of a better word, pressure on the server and all that. So that such tests will not be as rapid as other tests will do. And then the third point here, limitation, is which is actually a very important one, is that automation can fail due to many factors. A past automated test case may not be reliable due to false negative tests. And then a false automated test case may fail due to an error which is not related to the product itself at all. So it's good to understand that there are these limitations. Automation isn't everything, but tests can fail. We can't be disappointed when tests fail. It doesn't mean there's a problem with the automated tests. So yes, that brings me to the end of today's session on Agile automation testing. The next time we meet, that's next week, I'll bring in the approach to test automation. We'll talk about that. And then we'll also look at how to apply test automation to each approach that is mentioned. And then we'll look at test automation considerations or major test approaches, or, we'll look at some considerations basically. And that's it. Thank you very much. And I will allow questions to flood in or any feedback that you have. Thank you. Pardon my croaky voice. So any questions, please? Very quiet house.
Thank you, Eric, for such an eye-opener of a presentation. I was in the know that all test automation would always pass, and the team will be faster and will deliver much quicker code in the entire process. But you've presented some good realities. You still said there's still a need for manual testing.
Yes, sir.
How much need? Let's wait on a 100% scale. If we had automation testing and manual testing, which one will weigh higher? Would we say automation testing will weigh about 70 to 80 and manual will be 20%? Or what are your thoughts?
Right. It's a valid question, and I'm glad you asked that question. You can't, it all depends on what is being tested, the software and the test. It depends on what is being tested. Like I said from the beginning, the time to know whether you even need to do any automation is during iteration planning or refinement, because that's when you know what is required. So there's no guarantee you don't have to automate it. There's no need for any automation, but I've worked on projects where we were determined to automate as much as we could. So, but we knew what can be and should be automated. So anything that comes through in the features or acceptance criteria that we thought, hey, that's one of the candidates that we definitely want to automate, we will automate it. And then there were sprints where there was hardly anything to automate. So what do? You just look out for manual automated manual stuff that you can test. So you can't say percentage, you can't necessarily put that on anybody or any team, especially when it comes to system testing. And let's just say you've got no I used a static website with no data coming in and out. You won't be doing any performance testing on it, right? What are you going to automate? If all they're doing is adding text to the page in every sprint, or a different tab with text, there's not much to automate there. So you'll be wasting somebody's time saying automate. It will be a waste of the team's time. So it all depends.
Okay. Thank you so much. Any other questions for Eric?
I have to mention though that remember the unit testing. So there are certain tests I'm glad I remember this. There are certain tests that you can't do without automation. Unit testing, for instance, you can't manually unit test. It has to be automated, right? If there's performance related stuff, you can manually test some of it, very minor, just to give a baseline of how the product is working. But you can't do like 5,000, 3,000 concurrents or stuff like that. You definitely want to automate. So yeah.
Okay, Eric, if no one is asking, I'll ask, yeah?
Please.
Yeah. If someone were looking, let's say you are the CEO of a company and you're building a system that has to be what? Available all the time, yeah?
Yeah.
And you were going to start it off. From a testing perspective, would you recommend we think more automation or more manual? I know you would say it depends, but let's just say we bring in a system in that's safety critical. If it goes down, it could impact the life of an individual. What would be your recommendation? Should we go down the line of um, more automation testing?
So one of the things I mentioned, if I could go back to the slides, um, one of the items mentioned here is high risk tests. When you've done your risk assessment, you know they're business critical tests involved, stuff like that. You definitely do want to automate. So that comes under the high risk tests category. Yeah. And then again, you see on the list, you've got increasing number of tests. You've got more features coming in. That's a good reason to automate. So to answer your question precisely, yes, I would definitely consider automation, especially when you've got a lot of features coming in future.
Okay.
That is straight away, I will know that we have to automate, or I would recommend, if I'm the test analyst, that you automate or you consider automation.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Hi, Eric. Thank you very
Hey,
much for the presentation. I
bro.
just wanted to find out, is it possible to get the recording just for
Sorry,
reference?
I'm struggling to hear you. You're echoing a bit. If you could please.
Okay, sorry, I'm saying now. I said thank you for the presentation.
You're
Is it
welcome.
possible to get the recording? Is there any way we
Oh,
can access the
recording.
recording?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, that's William. Over to you on that one.
Yes, I know at the moment we've delayed with some recording just because our editor fell ill for some time and he's now back in good shape. So we should be getting our recordings back. And when he's done with it, we'll add it to the Agile Transformation Group ASAP. We've got a backlog, but he has promised that he's now in great health and he's going to get all the recordings back in. So we should be in good shape to get the recordings back. He was not well for a while.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I think Dayo's asked a question. Dayo, can you clarify your question, please? I'm not sure if I understand. So are reasons for failed automated testing same as that of manual? So are reasons for failed automated? Oh, right. No, not necessarily. No, not necessarily. If you look at the very last, sorry,
Can you hear me?
I can hear
Can
you.
you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. You do understand the question now?
I do. Yeah. Yes. No, not
Okay. Yes.
necessarily. Yeah. No, not necessarily. I'll go back to our very last one. We said that automated tests can fail due to many factors that have nothing to do with the product. It could be the environment issues. right? So that is where automated, well, example, but then it could be due to the same reason that a manual test will fail. So one of the things that we do when an we spot failure in an automated test is we manually test it first. Yeah, so it may not necessarily be the case. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did. The reason why I actually asked the question is to more or less kind of prepare for the automation testing. Because if one is able to identify what is unique to automated testing failures, then one can actually, prepare for it and ensure it doesn't happen. So I'm just wondering if, on the scale of comparing the two,
Yeah,
if there are factors or
yeah,
if
I
there
mean,
are factors that are unique to automated testing.
failures, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, if it passes manual, then it should pass automation as well. What all that automation does is it helps to do more work in a short space of time, and it takes care of the volume of work, right? That's the main thing that it does for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then if it passes manual,
Eric, in addition,
yes, please.
hi, Eric. Yeah, I was going to say, obviously, if it was a environment issue, it would definitely affect manual testing as well, because if it's broken, due to environment issues, then it would definitely not pass manual testing as well.
Yes, it depends on which environment. So it could be, are you talking about because some people, some right. There are times that people test manual in a different environment from automation. But yeah, generally I agree with you. Generally I agree with you. To a good extent. To some extent. Not 100%.
Well, because it's either in QA environments or also in development environment. Either way, manual will still test. And if it fails automation, they normally come back to manual testers to find out, what happened. And then we find out that it's either, yes.
No, I agree. Yeah. In that case.
So almost 100% or 99.9% that when automation fails, it fails manual testing as well.
Not 100%, because it could be an exception error, for instance. Where
except maybe it's code error.
Okay, right. I agree on that basis. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any feedback, any additions, anything anybody wants to add to what we've gone through, any contributions, that would be appreciated as well. And I think somebody asked that we do the first part of it, when to automate. I don't know whether you got what you wanted from it as well. It'd be good to know. Can't remember who it was, but.
Hi, Eric. It's Angela here.
Hi, Angela.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I think just to comment, I think that in my experience, management always feel that regression testing should be 100% automated. I don't know if you agree with that, but that's kind of the perception that we need to manage as project managers and set some expectations.
Yeah. Yes. So it depends on what's in the regression test, right?
Yeah.
So if I set this example that I said earlier on, it depends on it depends on the product or the software and the test again. if it's just static page with no data flowing or no functionalities on the page that you're working on, and just adding stuff to it, which rarely happens, but that I'm just using that as an example. I wouldn't see why you want to spend time paying, let's just say if you've just got a manual tester doing the work. I don't see why a project will want to spend money on a technical test analyst coming to write automation tests for that. And I don't see why you want to automate the test in that case, because automating means you're spending more time, or more time, because you have to maintain the test, you have to write the test, and more money as well on a skilled automate or expert to come and write the test. I don't know if it makes sense there, Angela. So it just depends on, so I wouldn't say 100%, but if in your case, what you're testing requires, the features require that you do 100%, then that may be, if that is the case, that is the case in your, so it's just dependent on the team, whatever the team decides to do.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Eric, should we call it a day?
Your call, boss.
Thank you so much, Eric. This session has been, I use the word insightful, but I'll look into the thesaurus and find another word. It's been really informative, looking at the myths, the limitations, and the realities of automation testing. And I'm looking forward to the next session. Though you're giving it to us in small bits, it's easy to absorb and to chew on. Tomorrow we're looking at the spotlight on the skilled agile framework. We're going into product management again. We're looking into the second version of product management, which we would focus on product backlog refinement. And for me, it's an interesting area because people do come around saying, oh, we're looking into the backlog, but what can we do to make sure that the backlog is right? And what does product backlog refinement in itself mean? I'll talk about product backlog refinement tomorrow. Thursday, we've got coaching, and it will be presented by Dr. Shirley Thompson. And I know coaching can change the things we want to do and can move us from where we are to where we don't even expect to be, but can take us to the next steps. I had 3 coaches in my life, and I can highly say I've benefited from all the coaches I've had. Friday, we have cloud computing with Yusuf, and I'm looking forward to that session as well. But more importantly, I want to say thank you to everyone who's joined us. Though our sessions are coming to an end at the end of November, we'll have a few sessions spread across December to keep you connected. Yes?
Thank you.
Hello. So thank you, everyone, and let's have a wonderful day. And our last session for Eric will be on the 30th of November. Have a wonderful day and see you all soon.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much, Eric. Thanks,
Thank you.
William.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank you
all.
very much.
Thank you, Kwame and
Thank you,
Eric.
Eric. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.